Tomy Plarail Thomas and Friends, The Grand Trek, is brought to you by Stamp Plarail Store, a shop that contains Plarail engines and value packs based on some memorable episodes. Enjoy the presentation.
The Fat Controller had decided to run a special weekend of rail tours on the railway as more and more people came to see his engines. The engines were delighted and relished the attention. The rail tour timetable had rostered different kinds of engines taking the trains. On Saturday morning, Edward and Thomas pulled the first train along the main line, whistling to others as they did. That afternoon, Toby and Percy took a train of their own together. The passengers marvelled at the old tram. Evening came. Gordon and James were being washed and polished for their train together at the sheds. The two engines were very excited. Henry banged into a line of trucks.
It's not fair. I don't get to pull a train until tomorrow. Not only that, but I'm doing it alone? Despicable.
Gordon and James teased at him.
Oh, I say, James. Henry looks a lot greener than usual. Don't you agree?
Oh, you're right, Gordon. Perhaps it's envy.
Oh, boiler ache. We know how delicate our dear Henry is.
Henry huffed and departed with his train, still jealous of the others. At last, James and Gordon had finished being cleaned, and Gordon backed onto the coaches. The coaches were waiting in anticipation at the platform as the passengers climbed aboard.
Let's try and have a good run this evening, little James.
James agreed. The guard waved his green flag and blew his whistle. The two engines snorted out of the station. Cameras flashed and snapped as they went through passing stations. The train was running at an incredible speed. They had charged right over Gordon's hill and hadn't even noticed. Gordon and James rocketed past a lonely signal box by the side of the line. It was covered by a tree and shrubbery. The two engines never saw it. The signalman was shocked by the speed the train had been running at. He quickly wrote something down in his logbook and telephoned Sir Topham Hatt. When they reached the end of the line, Gordon and James were surprised to see Sir Topham Hatt standing on the platform. He looked very cross.
I have received a telephone call about you two running at dangerous speed. Is there any truth to this?
James and Gordon gulped and admitted to speeding. Their crews apologized too.
We just wanted to give the passengers a fun run, sir.
That is no excuse for speeding. What if something was on the line? You never would have been able to stop in time. I am most disappointed in you all.
Sir Topham Hatt suspended the drivers and firemen off the footplate for a week. As for Gordon and James, they were no longer allowed to be part of the rail tour and were to be put back on their regular duties.
Well, we gave the passengers such a splendid run that the Fat Controller decided there was no point in us pulling another train.
Besides, we wanted to give the rest of you a chance to be in the spotlight too.
You two clearly just weren't cut out for a special train. Perhaps it's time for you two to feel a little green too, as I rush by with a train of my own.
This gave Gordon an idea.
Oh, I'm sure the passengers will love flying along the line with a grand engine like you.
He winked at James.
There's even a section of track that James and I passed where you can really stretch your wheels.
Oh, yes. It's just past Madden Station. Gordon and I passed it at a fine speed. The passengers said it was the highlight of the journey.
Oh, well, thank you for the tip.
Henry cheerfully set off to take on coal and water. That afternoon, Henry backed down onto his train. The passengers marvelled at the big green engine. Henry simmered comfortably until it was time to go.
They seem very excited to see us.
The coaches clattered behind him quietly as they pulled out of the station. Henry made good time along the line, saving his steam for the section of track James and Gordon had told him about. He had made it over the hill and had just passed Marin. He smiled to himself.
Now's my chance. Now's my chance.
He began to pick up speed, his crew unaware as to what their engine was planning. The lonely signal box sat waiting around the bend. The signalman was ready with his logbook. He spotted Henry and clicked his pen to write. Henry was just about to pass the signal box at high speed when a screeching noise came from one of his coaches. Someone had pulled the emergency cable. The driver forced the brakes hard on, and Henry came to a complete stop right in front of the signal box. The signalman sighed and put away his logbook. The guard ran up to Henry's cab. He looked disgruntled.
A silly passenger was standing up to use the bathroom. He had a bad case of diarrhea from Taco Bell, and he grabbed the cable by mistake. I'm afraid one of the coach's axles has run hot, and we can't move until it's cooled down.
So much for the highlight of the trip.
It wasn't long before Henry set off again. He was tired when he backed into the sheds. Gordon and James had stayed awake just to tease him.
So, how was your journey?
It went well for the most part.
Henry began to explain about the cable.
Honestly, how hard is it for passengers to use common sense while on a train? Imagine if I'd been speeding. There might have been an accident.
To this day, Henry still has no idea Gordon and James had tried to play a trick on him. I think that's for the best, don't you?